Hey folks, welcome back to Make It Good in my 10 by 20 tiny workshop. Today I'm going to run you through how I created a simple dust filter system out of scrap materials I had laying around the house. As a woodworker, especially in this small space, I'm finding that my tools are throwing out a ton of dust, even with my vacuum-based dust collection system hooked up. Dust is getting all over my tools, all over me, and in the air. And I want to build this filter to clean up the air and provide a cleaner and safer environment for me to work. So here is the heart of the system. This is a crummy old box fan I've had sitting around the garage for years. It's rusty, it needs some cleaning up, but it was free, it works, and with a frame and filter, it should meet our needs. So the first item of business is to get this thing taken apart, cleaned up, and looking nice. You can't have a janky looking piece of equipment in your shop, right? I have no idea how old this thing is, but clearly it's seen some years of use and neglect. So just have to get the shop vac after it and get everything cleaned up, wipe everything down, and make sure that it's ready to paint. Gotta have this thing looking real nice. You saw it. This rag was white when I first started. Gross. I want to paint the fan so it looks at home with all the rest of my tools in the shop. So I'm sanding it down to make sure the paint adheres to it well. I cut a trash bag in half to tape inside here and cover the blades and the motor while I'm painting it up. Clearly this is not a super professional paint job, just make it look nicer as I'm getting this ready to use in the shop. I chose a color to match some of the other yellow tools I have around the shop. This Ace brand spray paint wasn't the best. It took a lot of coats to get the right coverage. I had to use an entire can of paint just for this one fan. It did turn out nice though. I threw a coat of satin black spray paint on the knobs and handle of the fan, and then started reassembling everything. It sure looks a lot nicer than it did. Now we can actually get around to building the filter. I'm mucking everything up with scrap wood just to figure out where to make my cuts. I'm using a 1x8 as the base. Cut that down to size. I don't want to impede too much airflow, so the front piece here I'm going to put on the bandsaw and cut a curve out of that so it still holds the fan in place and gives a little bit of decorative interest. I realized most of the way through this cut that my bandsaw was too close to the wall, so I had to move it out. Luckily I installed a mobile base on it to make that much easier. I'll link to that video up above. I'm basically creating a cradle for the fan to sit down in and to hold the filter. These two side pieces will hold the fan in place and provide support for the frame that holds the filter up against the fan. I thought these side pieces would look nice with a little curve to them. Plus I like using my bandsaw, so use the tape to measure out that radius and put it up on the saw to make the cut. Since I'm using scrap wood for this project, not everything is the right length. So in this case, I'm putting everything together so I can make some measurements on another piece of board so that I can cut that down and fill in this front support. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know I'm a big fan of using pocket hole screws. So Put the pocket holes in place, and that way it gives me a good strong connection for the side pieces, and then I can use some countersunk holes in the bottom to put some of the front support pieces on. The front and side pieces are in place, and I like the way they came out. Now it's time to focus on the back of the fan and start preparing that for the frame that's going to hold the air filter in place. I'm marking out right now where the cord comes through. I'm going to drill a hole and then take it over to the bandsaw and make some cuts so that that cord has a place to be when this board is put in place. Now to build the frame that holds the filter onto the back of the fan. I'm ripping down a 1x4 into pieces that I'll put together as a frame, roughly the size of the filter itself, and put a spacer to hold it from sliding side to side. This spacer will also kind of restrict airflow so that all the air coming through the back of the fan is directed through the filter. And the filter fits perfectly. Now we can attach the frame to the base and do a little mock-up and make sure everything still fits the way we expect it to. And it does. I'm going over everything with 150 grain sandpaper just to knock down some of the sharp edges, get rid of the saw marks, and make it look a little nicer all the way around. And finally, since I want this thing mobile so I can move it around wherever I need it in the shop, putting some casters on this. These are just some small, cheap casters that I had laying around, and they're going to be perfect for moving this around the shop. And here it is, the final product ready to rock and roll. A dust filter system for my shop, made out of scrap items I had laying around. This thing ought to work just fine for pulling in the airborne dust that I have flying around my shop when I'm working in here, keeping everything a little cleaner, a little safer for me to breathe, and a little nicer all the way around. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, I'd love for you to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. If you do subscribe, hit that notification button so you know when I post new videos. I appreciate each and every one of you following along today. Y'all get out there and make it good. Appreciate it.